of a lot of efforts and good intentions of people that thought that at the time they were doing something that was going to benefit the city. It's like a kind of remnants of unsuccessful attempts to make the city better. Things like the Lees Circle roundabout and any number of the massive amounts of car parks that go unused because at the time it was a great idea. But then they built the giant ring road around the outside and it seemed to have kind of blocked the centre off from the exterior, and then it actually seems to have done the opposite, where the city has become less inhabitable than it was before. The Vernoli Theatre is interesting because my project actually directly faces the Vernoli Theatre and attempts to kind of use the curve of the theatre in its own language. But in the context of the rest of Leicester, I feel like it is a successful building because it's done to a high quality and it's for a good purpose, and there seems to have been a kind of start to finish, but it's still relatively crude, so I think it's a step in the right direction. Well, obviously, I like to think it is. It's kind of using devolution to turn the idea of what already exists within major cities on its head slightly. It questions both a kind of urban function of a building in terms of its social context, so how a building faces public squares and how a building creates entranceways to other larger public spaces that can be used by a city that needs them. But it also questions what it means to be a gallery, or what culture and art means within the city. So instead of practicing instilled norms of how galleries function or should appear to be, Leicester has an opportunity, I feel, to question these things and create something that's more about a community's voice rather than an individual's, or can become more accessible. I really like the St Mary de Castro church and old Castle Hall area that's kind of been left untouched since it was there, minus the church having to lose its spire and still hasn't been put back yet. The whole area is really beautiful. It's not trying too hard, it's just stone. It's like stone architecture with trees and with lovely pathways and spaces to just sit and be, which Leicester seems to kind of not have very much of. It's all disused areas, or areas with a lot of potential, but it hasn't been, no one's done anything with it, no one's turned it into anything else, whereas that's been there since the inception of the city within the old Motte and Bailey Castle, and it just feels like it has the same charm and character that was envisaged for it from all the way back then, if not better. It's like a kind of romantic aspect to it now. John's project for Lees Circle, where he is also trying to enliven Leicester, a new Leicester, by giving it the opportunity to become its own centre of commerce. As John's is purely commercial, you could say that, like, by doing it through creative means that also serves commercial purpose, you're taking two birds with one stone. I think the east part of the city centre, which is where St George's churchyard is, so the area around my site, it could be a really good spot to just not do that much work, but to make a lot of effect, because it's kind of empty and a bit dead, and they're trying to enliven it now with Orton Square and the Cultural Quarter, but it kind of feels like they could just push that a bit more, and the whole city centre would sort of spread eastwards, and there'd be much more many new facilities available, and more draws for the public to want to come to the city centre other than just a shopping district. So I feel like the centre is all about shopping at the moment. The west is all about the history of the city, which is great. It's really lovely. I think that's fine as it is, and I think the east could become the new centre of kind of social and like social involvement rather than a commercial involvement that comes with the city centre at the moment, which is just shopping.